guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are sharing my birth story, which is so crazy. Like, I don't even know how I was ever pregnant, like how I have a child, anything like that. It just seems still so surreal. Today is Sophie's like 7-week birthday, I guess. So yeah, it's just been the absolute best. I can't believe I get to share this with you guys. If you haven't already checked out my labor and delivery vlog, I'll link it right up here for you. It's really good, in my opinion. I cried while I was there and watching the video. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into the birth story, because there were actually like some details in our labor and delivery vlog that we intentionally left out just because it would have been super long and nobody wants to watch a super long video. So we're gonna do it here. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So let me take you guys back to February 6th of this year, 2019. Hunter and I were going in for just like our regular OB checkup appointment to make sure everything was good. And if you've watched any of my other previous videos, you know that, or if you like know me personally, you know that I've struggled with high blood pressure during pregnancy. Not like my entire pregnancy, it actually happened at 34 weeks. I was admitted to the hospital and they checked me, did like a non-stress test to make sure Sophie was okay. Everything was good. So we go into our 36-week appointment. They take my blood pressure, which at this point I'm just like dreading because I don't want to go back to the hospital and get stuck with all those needles again. But they take my blood pressure and it's 160 over 100. That's high. So anyway, they take my blood pressure, they do the rest of the tests they do, not the test, but like they have me pee in a cup, and they check my cervix to see if I'm dilated, which at that point I was. I was a centimeter dilated and I was 60% effaced. So after that, my OB comes in, gives me this look, and she says, we're gonna go to the hospital. And I have to redo the stress test, which is awful. And so yeah, Hunter and I go to the hospital. On our way there, well, it's like right next to my OB, so like on the 2-minute drive over there, I call my mom and I'm just freaking out and I'm crying because we had initially had an induction scheduled for when I was 38 weeks pregnant because of my high blood pressure. So we still had 2 weeks until Sophie was really supposed to arrive. So I was prepared to wait until 38 weeks. I honestly didn't think we'd be having her any sooner than that. So I call my mom, I'm just freaking out. I like 3-way call and my dad's in the phone call now. And they just try to calm me down and remind me that this is obviously God's timing. I have no control over what's going to happen. So we get to the hospital. I'm still freaking out. I'm like hooked up to a machine that's like consistently checking your blood pressure, probably like every 10 minutes or so. And I pee in a cup again. And I also had a needle in my arm, which I probably like still have the scar from it actually, because it hurt really bad. Normally whenever like I get an IV or something, they give it to you in like the crook of your arm. Yeah, this one they didn't. They gave it like actually on my forearm, because if I had to be checked into the labor and delivery unit, they didn't want to have to re-stick me again, because I guess they put them there for like reasons, if I don't know. They told me, but I don't really remember. So that one hurt really bad. So go through all the tests. We wait for probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and the doctor who was on call for like that emergency like OB section of the hospital comes in, says everything looks good, but she talked to my doctor and we're just gonna have a baby. So at that point I just start crying because I am not emotionally ready. I'm not, like, I guess I'm physically ready. Like, I'm 36 weeks pregnant. I'm in the hospital, but I just didn't feel like I was ready. Like, I just hadn't prepared at all. I had prepared for Sophie to be there at 38 weeks, not 36 weeks. So Hunter calms me down, like the nurse calms me down, and so does the doctor, and lets me know everything's gonna be okay. And so we grab all of our stuff and we go over to the labor and delivery side of the hospital and we get checked in there. So I get all re-hooked up to everything. Sophie looks good. They recheck my cervix to make sure that I am 1 centimeter and 60% effaced. And after that, Hunter leaves and he goes to our house to go grab our hospital bags. Which crazy thing is, I had actually filmed like that day my what's in my hospital bag, so like I literally packed it that day. I never put it on my channel though because I was going to refilm it because there were several things I had missed, so I ended up not putting it up. But yeah, Hunter went to go get everything and came back to the hospital, and we kind of just hung out at the hospital until about midnight, and that's when they started doing treatments on me. So basically, since I had entered into the 3rd trimester, I had really bad back pain, especially like in my lower back. It was absolutely awful. It wasn't like debilitating or anything, but it certainly like wasn't comfortable, and it hurt to like walk around, and if I was like in one position for too long, that was really uncomfortable too. So midnight hits, my nurse comes in and she gives me my first round. I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically this like small pill that they insert into your cervix to ripen it, which is essentially just thinning out your cervix to prepare for delivery eventually. So I got 3 rounds of that. I got one at midnight, 3 o'clock, and then 6 a.m. And each time she came in and inserted that pill, she would check my cervix first to see how far along or how much more dilated I got. So the first time she inserted the pill, I was still 1 centimeter. The second time she inserted it, I had gone to 2 centimeters. And then the third time she had inserted it, so at 6 o'clock, I was still at 2 centimeters. So it's not really any progress from then to there, but during the middle of the night, I could not sleep at all. I was in so much pain, like, because they were giving me those pills that were inserted into my cervix. Like, the process, not of, like, labor was happening, but, like, the very beginning stages were. And so my back pain was getting so much worse, and it was just absolutely awful. Like, Hunter and I walked around the labor and delivery floor for a little bit, but I really couldn't go far without like holding onto the rail, just being in so much pain. So about an hour after I got my 3rd treatment, they came in, rechecked me, and I was in between 3 to 4 centimeters. And then I don't know what time my doctor came in. I'm assuming maybe like an hour, hour and a half after I got rechecked. She came in and broke my water, and that is just like the weirdest sensation. Like, it's so warm, and like this is just gross, but like there's blood everywhere, and it's just like oozing out of you, and it was just so weird. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was like the oddest sensation I've ever had. And so she came in and broke my water, and from there I got an epidural, and at that point I was at 4 centimeters dilated. So once I got the epidural, it was like smooth sailing after that. I was like so numb. I really didn't feel anything, except for about like 30 minutes after I got my epidural. I started to like feel again the back labor, because I only had back labor. I did not have like, I don't know if like people's stomachs tighten and that's what like normal labor feels like. I didn't have any of that, or if I did, I just didn't feel it because of the epidural. But I only felt it in my back. So about 30 minutes after I get the epidural, I start feeling on my right side that I'm like having back labor again, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, why is this happening? And so my nurse comes in and she tells me to roll over onto my right side, and then that the epidural, I guess, will like move over to that side sort of and start being more effective over there, without like lessening the numbing, I guess, on my left side. So I roll over and I'm just on my right side for about 30 minutes, and it's definitely working. Like, I don't feel anything again on my right side. And so at this point I'm good, and they recheck me like 45 minutes later, and all of a sudden I've gone from 5 centimeters to 10 centimeters. So labor is about to happen. I'm about to give birth to Sophie, and it's just like the craziest feeling. So at this point, even though I was 10 centimeters, they wanted me to do this thing called laboring down, which is supposed to help you have a faster labor, like you're not going to be pushing as long or anything like that. And laboring down is actually just laying on your side. So I was already doing that. So I laid in that position for like an extra 30 minutes, and they bought like all the they brought in all the warming blankets. Like the staff was coming into the room, the doctor was there, and after those 30 minutes were up, they raised up my bed and put me in the stirrups, and we started pushing. That laboring down really helped. Like I probably actively pushed for 5 minutes. And then Sophie was there. Like I pushed, I think for 3 contractions. And she was out, and it was so crazy and so surreal. Like as soon as I could see her head, like she wasn't even out of me yet, I just started crying hysterically and just couldn't believe that like Sophie was here and she was in the world, and that I was about to be a parent with my best friend. It was just absolutely surreal and the best feeling ever, and it was just amazing. So once Sophie was out, the doctors and nurses took her over to look her over to make sure she was healthy, which she was. And I did tear. I don't remember like how bad it was, but they told me it was the most common type of tear, so it was painful, but it wasn't like super painful. So I got sewn up while they were doing all their things with her, and Hunter of course was like filming everything, so yeah, that video is already up. But it was just so awesome. And like the weirdest thing is like when you push the baby out of you, it's just like so much relief, I guess would be the word. Like you just like feel empty, I guess. And then like once your placenta comes out of you, like you feel even more empty, and you're like, wow, I'm like back to myself, sort of. So after like a couple of hours of Sophie being there and having skin to skin time with her, and like I guess getting everything that we needed to get to move to the recovery wing was done, we went up there, and that's when things started to take a turn. So like I said, I dealt with high blood pressure since 34 weeks of my pregnancy, and normally when you give birth, like that just goes away, like it should go away. Well, mine didn't, so we stayed in the hospital for like 4 days, and it was absolutely awful because I just wanted to go home. My mom was coming into town when we finally got home, so I just wanted my mom too, and it was just crazy. And we found out Sophie had jaundice, but it wasn't like as bad enough where we had to stay in the hospital. So I eventually was put onto high blood pressure medicine, which I guess they're going to reevaluate that like at 6 months to make sure that it's gone away and everything, which it's all normal now because I'm on the medicine. But yeah, so we stay in the hospital and we find out we're going to go home like normal. So we're there for like, we give birth, we're there for a day, and then we're going to go home. Well, my doctor comes in, and because my blood pressure like isn't where they want it to be, I have to stay in the hospital. So we stay in the hospital, and then the next day they come in and reevaluate me. Blood pressure still isn't where they want it to be, so we have to stay in the hospital another day, which was just awful. Like at that point I was so ready to leave, just being like cooped up in that room with a newborn, and you're so exhausted and you just want your mom to be there, but she's not. She's 1,000 miles away. So it was really, really hard. So on day 4, my nurse comes in, she rechecks my blood pressure, and it's still not where they want it to be, but at that point they had finally started me on blood pressure medicine to see if it would go down, and it did, but it was just like gradually going down. So I was finally able to be released from the hospital, which was so nice. So we came home, had our first night here with Sophie, which was crazy, but I was so glad to be home and to just have my space and not be inside a room all day eating hospital food. So yeah, we finally had our first day at home, and that following day we go to Sophie's pediatrician for her first appointment. So we get to the pediatrician, and they're checking her to make sure everything is okay. And since she had a little bit of jaundice when we left the hospital, they checked her bilirubin count, and it had gone up. So they wrote an order for us to go to the hospital to have like lab work done where they prick the bottom of the heel on the baby. So we get to the hospital after we just left, go to the lab, and they prick the bottom of Sophie's foot and let us know that they'll be in touch within a couple of hours to tell us if we need to be admitted to the hospital or if we just need to have a follow-up appointment again with her pediatrician. So a couple hours passed, we got to get lunch, and we're just praying, like, please God, do not send us back to the hospital. We're so ready to go home and to just start this life without a medical team surrounding us. So the hospital eventually calls us, and we have to go back in. So we go to the hospital, get all the paperwork signed and done, and we are readmitted, but this time it's for Sophie, and it's in the pediatric wing of the hospital. So we stay there overnight, and she's put under like the blue light therapy, and it was just awful. So I mean, it was a great experience, I guess, because we eventually got to leave the hospital, but it was really hard because we essentially spent 5 days there. One day at home, it's like a little tease, and then had to go back, but this time it was for Sophie, so it was just really emotional for all of us. So at this point, I'm just going to be really open and honest and real about like the whole birth experience and everything that it entails. Labor for me was really easy. The recovery part was also really easy. It was just adjusting to life with Sophie that was kind of hard. Not that I don't love her or anything like that, but more specifically, like breastfeeding for me was really, really difficult, and I don't want to cry. So I don't even know if like I'm allowed to say this, but I'm gonna say it because I don't care. So since Sophie was born so premature, obviously like she could have been bigger than 6 pounds and 1 ounce, but she wasn't, and that's okay. So breastfeeding was really hard. We had tried it for about a week and a half-ish, maybe. And my nipple was just too big for her mouth because her mouth was just so tiny. And anytime she would feed off me, it was so painful. Even with lactation consultants' helps and talking to like the Oklahoma breastfeeding hotline number, like just nothing worked. Like I was always in pain. And eventually my nipple on like my right breast had cracked. And that was extremely painful, and there was like blood coming out, and I didn't know if it was okay for Sophie to be like consuming my blood through breast milk. So at that point, I had just decided to start pumping, and it was still incredibly painful. I had the right phalange sizes because the hospital had given them to me, and they had checked to make sure that they were the correct sizes. So I exclusively pumped her breast milk for about another week, and I was so depressed during that time. So I had really bad baby blues to begin with, but pumping was awful. So after we went back to, after Sophie got released from the hospital, we had another follow-up appointment at her pediatrician where they rechecked her bilirubin count. And after just a day of not being at the hospital under the lights, her bilirubin count had gone back up. And so we weren't readmitted back to the hospital or anything, but they put her on formula because that's supposed to completely wash out like any jaundice in babies. So she was put on formula, and I was pumping to like keep my supply up. Well, pumping just hurt so bad too. It didn't nearly hurt as bad as breastfeeding, but I was having to do it every 2 hours during the day and 3 at night. And I just felt like I didn't have any time at all with Sophie because she would be awake and I would be pumping, and I couldn't like play with her, hold her, or anything because I had these things attached to my breast, and I was doing that for 15 minutes at a time, washing the bottles, and then after I was done pumping and cleaning everything up, I'd have to do it again in like an hour and a half. And so I was just really depressed. I felt like I wasn't spending time with my baby, and it was just awful. And I felt so bad for Sophie, and I felt so bad for myself. So Sophie was started on that formula to help wash out all of her jaundice, and it definitely helped. Within just like 2 days, we could tell that she was more alert and more awake, because with jaundice and with your child being a preemie, they are super sleepy all the time. So it was a struggle for her to even drink a bottle or to like feed off of me, because she would just be constantly falling asleep. So we did formula, like only formula, for 2 days. And when we went back to the doctor, yes, we went back to the doctor a lot. They said, okay, we can go ahead and start reintroducing your breast milk now that she's like starting to wake up and the jaundice is getting flushed out of her system. Well, after that, we had started reintroducing the breast milk, and we just did it every other time. So she'd have my breast milk and then formula, my breast milk, formula. Well, my breast milk, come to find out, was tainted with jaundice in it. So each time that she was consuming my milk, she would, I guess, be like essentially getting jaundice again, getting like more jaundice. And more sleepy was the other issue. And so eventually we just decided to strictly do formula with Sophie, and she does so great with it. She doesn't have like any nipple confusion. Like, we finally found the bottle that's perfect for her and that has like a great flow and that she likes and I like, and it's just been really good for us. So yeah, she is formula fed. That is, I feel like, part of our story because it ties into her being jaundice. Otherwise, I wouldn't have mentioned it because it's really no one's business. But because it did tie, like, finding out that my breast milk was jaundice and her having jaundice and formula being the only thing to fix it, it just made sense to kind of tell that part of the story. Like I had said earlier, I felt like pumping was just like putting me into postpartum depression. So to be honest, I was completely relieved and actually happy that we had decided to make the switch to formula, because I can't even tell you, like, after she was on formula and we had just made that decision, I felt so much freedom from the pump, and didn't care what somebody was going to say to me about her being formula fed, because fed is best. And you not only have to make sure that your baby is being healthy, but also that mom is being healthy too. And this is just what worked for our family, and we are so happy with it. Hunter loves to feed her bottles because he just feels so connected to her, and it's just been great for all of us. But yeah, guys, that's it. That's my birth story. I can't believe that Sophie is 7 weeks today. Like, it blows my mind that she's literally going to be 2 months old this time next week. Like, what the heck? But she's so cute. She's so alert now and awake and just fun, and she loves being kissed. It's the cutest thing. She'll smile after we just like give her all the kisses. But I just absolutely love her. I can't imagine my life without her. And being her mom is seriously like one of the greatest joys in my life, other than being like a Christ follower and Hunter's wife. But I absolutely love her. She's the absolute cutest. I'll insert a picture right here just so we can all look at her and admire her adorableness. But yeah, guys, that's it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!